What is Varys and Illyrio's master plan? It seems to change a lot, but what is the plan? Let's take a look. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. On this channel we dive deep into the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, as well as The Lord of the Rings and The Witcher. Welcome. This is the latest in a loose sort of series looking at Varys, Illyrio, young Griff and all of that. You don't need to have watched any of the others before you watch this video, but I will build on what I've said in them a few times, so if you want to, there's a link to the playlist down in the description. If you are a bit confused by Varys and Illyrio's master plan in A Song of Ice and Fire, then do not worry, you are not alone. And if it feels like it changes quite a lot, then that's because it does change quite a lot. What we'll do in this video is try to break down those changes and why, so we know what the plan is now. But as an overview, here is Tristan Rivers, a senior member of the Golden Company, sharing his thoughts about the changeability of Illyrio's plans. Which plan? The Fat Man's plan? The one that changes every time the moon turns? First, Viserys Targaryen was to join us with 50,000 Dothraki screamers at his back. Then the Beggar King was dead, and it was to be the sister, a pliable young child queen who was on her way to Pentos with 3 new-hatched dragons. Instead, the girl turns up on Slaver's Bay and leaves a string of burning cities in her wake, and the Fat Man decides we should meet her by Volantis. Now that plan is in ruins as well. I have had enough of Illyrio's plans. Robert Baratheon won the Iron Throne without the benefit of dragons. We can do the same. His frustration is palpable, but he does actually give a pretty accurate summary of how the plan evolves over time. So let's start at the beginning, because despite all the changes, the objective seems to stay the same, to get young Griff, also known as Aegon VI or Fagon, onto the Iron Throne via an invasion from Essos headed up by the Golden Company. This is the case regardless of whether you believe that young Griff is actually a Blackfire, Rhaegar's son Aegon, or a complete nobody trained up by Illyrio. Personally, I like to think that this is Illyrio's promise to his dying wife that he loved so much, that he would make their son, a Blackfire through the female line, king of the 7 kingdoms. Give or take a couple of years, this son was born at the same time as Aegon, had the classic Valyrian looks, and Varys could come up with a convincing explanation for how he was rescued from the sack of King's Landing. Very broadly, the plan, which probably emerged over a few years, was for Illyrio to take control of raising young Griff and getting an invading army ready to go when he was old enough, and on the other side of the narrow sea, Varys' job was to prepare the 7 kingdoms for invasion, so it was vulnerable at the right time. This clearly would require some coordination, and that is exactly what we see happening the first time we see the two of them together, through Arya's eyes deep beneath the Red Keep. Varys tells Illyrio that war is brewing, and Illyrio responds, "Too soon, too soon. What good is war now? We are not ready. Delay. We must have time. The princess is with child. The Carl will not bestir himself until his son is born. You know how they are, these savages." "What would you have me do?" asked the torchbearer, a stout man in a leather half-cape. It seemed to Arya there was something oddly familiar about him. "If one hand can die, why not a second?" replied the man with the accent and the forked yellow beard. "You have danced the dance before, my friend." "Before is not now, and this hand is not the other. Delay, you say. Make haste, I reply. Even the finest of jugglers cannot keep 100 balls in the air forever." "You are more than a juggler, old friend. You are a true sorcerer. All I ask is that you work your magic a while longer." So the plan originally seems to involve Viserys and the Dothraki invading Westeros at a time when the 7 kingdoms are weak. The argument about timing here is because the 7 kingdoms seems a matter of days or weeks from civil war, but Khal Drogo seems a very long way from being willing to sail to Westeros. In theory, according to Tristan Rivers, the Dothraki would have joined up with the Golden Company and invaded. Dorne would probably also have been involved. They hated the Lannisters, and maybe even Varys and Illyrio's extensive spy network had uncovered the marriage pact between Viserys and Arianne, formally tying the Martells into the plot, whether they knew it or not. At which point, you may wonder what Viserys has got to do with all of this. If they wanted to put young Griff on the throne, why bother with Viserys at all? Well, Keeping young Griff a secret for as long as possible certainly seems to have been a deliberate strategy, because it eliminated the possibility of assassination attempts, a very real threat, and because they genuinely seem to have wanted him to be brought up outside of a life of privilege. As Varys says, Aegon has been shaped for rule since before he could walk. He has lived with fisherfolk, worked with his hands, swum in rivers and mended nets and learned to wash his own clothes at need. He can fish and cook and bind up a wound. He knows what it is like to be hungry, to be hunted, to be afraid. Tommen has been taught that kingship is his right. Aegon knows that kingship is his duty, that a king must put his people first and live and rule for them. A laudable aim, and if Tyrion is right to judge him about 15 or 16 years old when he meets him, that would make him just 13 or 14 at the beginning of the story, perhaps still a bit too young to lead, even by Westerosi standards. Whatever the reasons, Illyrio and Varys clearly wanted Viserys to head up the invasion, even though Illyrio at least knew what he was like. After that, well, we don't know the details of this bit of the plan as it never actually happened, but at some point they would clearly have brought young Griff to the fore and announced him as Aegon VI, who, as the eldest son of the Mad King, could be argued to be ahead of the second son Viserys in the line of succession. Viserys would surely object, but who would you rally behind? In short, Viserys was necessary in the short term, but dispensable in the longer term. An attitude it seems likely they held towards Dany at the start as well. Her use to start with was to draw in Khal Drogo, but that's about it. When Drogo seems to have indefinitely suspended any plans to attack Westeros, that's when Varys informed King Robert that Dany was pregnant, leading to the assassination attempt on her, and Khal Drogo recommitting once more to the invasion. You'll notice that Varys worked on both sides of that, incidentally. He hires the assassin and tips off Ser Jorah to foil the attempt. It therefore seems likely that Varys was happy with either ending, Dany living or dying, as long as Drogo was angered into action. So at that point, things must have seemed to be back on track. The Golden Company was alerted to be ready, and the Seven Kingdoms was completely unaware, tearing itself apart as it was in a civil war. But then things went wrong. First, Viserys died, then Khal Drogo did, so that plan had to be put aside. Instead, something unexpected then happens. News emerges that Dany has hatched 3 dragons. Perhaps she wasn't so useless after all. They could forget the Dothraki, they now had dragons, provided they could get Dany on side, of course. Young Griff was now a year older, so he could head up the invasion, and they could probably just marry Dany off to him. You know how Targaryens are. Their man still gets on the Iron Throne. So Illyrio dispatches 2 of his finest, Strong Belwas and Sir Barristan, to sail to Qarth with 3 ships and fetch her back to Pentos. At which point, let's switch back over to King's Landing, because something else Varys has been doing there is trying to remove the competent leadership of the city, one by one. He plots to get Ned Stark sent to the wall, though is blindsided by him being killed. Subtly pushes Joffrey to dismiss Sir Barristan, knowing he would likely next head to Illyrio or Dany. Works with Jaime to free Tyrion from the Black Cells and sends him to Illyrio, and also, if you look back at it, gives rather precise instructions to Tyrion as to how he might find his father's chambers through the secret tunnels. 230 rungs up, the tunnel to the left for 60 feet, the 3rd room on the left. He didn't make Tyrion kill his father, but he certainly gave him the opportunity. Then, of course, there is the death of Kevan Lannister, who he even apologises to, admitting that it was just because he was doing too good a job managing the city. Anyway, Daenerys ends up ignoring Illyrio's offer via Sir Barristan to go to Pentos, and instead sells the ships he provided to pay for the Unsullied, proceeding to head north along the coast of Slaver's Bay, destroying or setting free cities as she goes, depending on your perspective. Illyrio then confidently assumes that she must be about to continue that march westwards along the Demon Road towards Valentis, so instructs the Golden Company to wait for her there, not Pentos, and he dispatches young Griff to head down the Rhoyne to meet her there too, along with Tyrion, the latest new ally Varys has smuggled out of King's Landing. Though then Dany foils that plan by not heading west, but instead trying to govern Meereen wisely, and eventually disappears on Dragonback into the Dothraki Sea. So that plan also has to change. And by the time young Griff arrives to meet up with the Golden Company, they and he are well and truly frustrated by all these changes of plan. They're on to Plan 4 by this point, and they haven't even set sail for Westeros. So young Griff decides that they should just do it. Forget about the Dothraki and dragons and Daenerys. They should strike while the iron is hot, take a few strategic strongholds in the Stormlands before the Lannisters even know they are under attack, and gather support as they go along. They are pretty confident that Dorne will fall into line. Jon Connington has contacts in the Stormlands, and they even have some mysterious friends in the Reach they think they can rely on. And the Seven Kingdoms is on its knees after 18 months or so of remorseless war. Stannis has taken much of the Stormlands army north to the Wall, so that is vulnerable. The Lannisters are focused on bringing the Riverlands under their control, and Varys has ensured that the Lannisters and Tyrells are the weakest of allies in King's Landing. A strategy, it has to be said, that Tyrion urged young Griff to adopt when they were on board the Shy Maid, telling him not to wait for Daenerys in Volantis, but instead to go on the offensive. "Land and raise your banners, and men will flock to your cause, lords great and small folk too. But do not wait too long, my prince. The moment will not last. The tide that lifts you now will soon recede. Be certain you reach Westeros before my sister falls and someone more competent takes her place. All you need to do is raise your banners, rally your supporters, and hold until Daenerys arrives to join her strength to yours." So that seems to be the plan now, and so far it seems to be working. We haven't seen much of the invasion firsthand, but they certainly seem to have captured a lot of territory in the Stormlands and maybe even Storm's End, as hinted at in one of the pre-release chapters of The Winds of Winter. Incidentally, when Tyrion later hears that they are going with this plan, he appears surprised. It's quite a deep cut, but when giving the advice he was playing a game of Cyvasse against young Griff, which ended when young Griff went on the offensive but neglected to bring his dragon to the centre of the action, a big mistake which cost him the game. Foreshadowing? Probably. So that is how Varys and Illyrio's plan has evolved over the course of the story, and what is most noticeable is that the plan they finally ended up with is not what they wanted. It's what young Griff and the Golden Company agreed after growing frustrated with all the changes. Still, Varys and Illyrio are used to their plans going slightly awry, and we should expect them to roll with the punches. Certainly we see Varys respond to hearing that the invasion is going ahead anyway by eliminating Kevan and Pycelle and framing the Tyrells, which will almost certainly lead to Cersei doing something rash. Will it succeed? Well, we'll look at that another time. But what did I miss? Varys and Illyrio have been planning this for years, and theirs is a flexible and complex plan. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you'd like to see more videos like this, diving deep into the world of Ice and Fire, there's a playlist now on the left of your screen. Or to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon page on the right of your screen. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.